The Bodelan Way by Trimble. So this book was copyright 1974, and I have this DAW copy of this one. It's a pretty early DAW, number 86, as you can see there. And we got cover art by Kelly Freeze, and if you'd like to pause, you could read on the back here. Kind of starts off with a purr, and there was plenty of purring in this one. Me and the wife started a new concept or idea, and once a month my wife is going through the library and picking out kind of a random book, and this was the first one. We're kind of calling it the wife's wild card pick, but I don't know if we're going to stick with that one at the moment. But I was kind of glad when she picked this one, because you see a lot of books like this. You see a lot of DAW paperbacks. They got great covers. I pick them up for a couple bucks. But you just kind of wonder, like, how good are these books? And you can double check me. I don't know if I got this right, but I believe that these DAW books were coming out at like 2 copies a week. And Donald Walheim is known for his editing, and I think, even wrote some novels. But at that rate, at 2 a week, you got to figure that there's going to be some mediocre books in this lot. There was like 500 and some books that came out. There was a lot of reprints, but this was an original DAW novel. Besides this copy, the only other way to get this is an ebook. But, I got to say, this is a solid book. This is a very plot-driven book. It's light on world building. The character development is kind of light as well. But in my mind, it felt like Trimble kind of knew what he was good at. He stuck to that, and it made for a good, solid, entertaining read. I guess you could call this like a palate cleanser or a popcorn read. There was nothing like too deep in it, but it was a lot of fun. The plot kept you engaged. There was some twists and turns. And overall, it was pretty solid. I think Trimble also wrote a bunch of like westerns and murder mystery kind of books and whatnot, but he did write a few science fiction books as well. So let's talk about this. If this is a plot-driven book, what is the plot about in this one? So we have a main character. Her name is Margil, and that is what's represented on the cover here. She's an alien called a Bodelan, and her father is one of the most powerful and richest person in the galaxy. And we find out pretty early on, her father is kind of starting this sort of underground group, and they're called the Monarchus League, and kind of a silly name, but it's basically some monarchs who are trying to consolidate power in the galaxy to just a few people, and he's kind of one of the main people behind this. But because of their unique alien culture and whatnot, she is kind of at the adolescent stage. She's kind of hitting puberty for their species, and she's got this tutor, and he's kind of the main character of this novel, and his name is Endo. And like I said, because of some of the uniqueness of their culture, she's allowed to learn anything that she really is interested in. And this tutor of hers, Endo, has been teaching her about another kind of faction that's been forming in anticipation for these monarchs. And this faction was called the Universal Brotherhood. And they kind of have a abbreviation called UNI. And we also find out pretty early on that our main character is not completely human. He's half human and half a different alien race. And some of these kind of crossbred human hybrids, or whatever you want to call them, they've started to notice some of them have started forming these kind of one-way telepathic abilities where they're able to read people's minds, but only when they're in this unique setting and state of mind are they able to do this. But we do kind of learn pretty early on that our main character is kind of the next step of this, where there's certain individuals that are able to read minds in just normal everyday settings. And so this also becomes kind of a main plot device in this book. But in the very beginning, our main character here, this species is very unique. They're cat-like. They can purr. They can make these sounds that are in the really low frequency range that's talked about, like it'll rattle your teeth when they make these sounds. But she's kind of having this episode, which is kind of common at times too, where she's kind of lost her mind. She's kind of blanked out. She doesn't know what she's doing. Her body's flailing around. Very fast, twitchy kind of thing happening. And our main character, Endo, he was with her at the time, and he's trying to kind of control her and subdue her. It can be dangerous. He's taken some shots from her, but she doesn't really know what she's doing. And a couple people come up to kind of help him. One is a woman who he knows, and she has been known to be part of this uni group, this Universal Brotherhood. And then another person comes up, and this lady is kind of this mysterious off-worlder. We don't know a lot about her at first, but she's 100% human, probably came from Earth. And she's kind of interested in this scene that's going on, but she knows nothing about the Bodelan culture, so she doesn't really know what's going on. But there's some mysteriousness with her, and then they end up subduing her. They take her back to their house where she lives in kind of a separate area with her father, but her father kind of has his own area. And you start getting some idea that there's a lot going on behind the scenes here. And as they continue on and take her out for like another outing, they end up kind of getting gassed and subdued, and they wake up on this spaceship, not knowing where they're going, not knowing who abducted them. And that's kind of the setup for the plot. And it takes you on some twists and turns. You never quite know who's really working for who or what the people's motives are at all times. You're kind of left in the dark on that. Our main character, Endo, with his kind of mind reading abilities, sometimes that gives you some insight of what's going on, and sometimes it could be counterproductive because you realize that people are picking up on this and they're kind of thinking opposite things at times to throw him off. And the plot continues. Like I said, it's a very plot-driven story, and you get a pretty decent ending at the end. I don't ever sit there and like try to figure out what's going to happen in these books. I just let the reader take me on this journey, and it was surprising at times. There was some neat twists, and it was wrapped up pretty tidy at the end. So, you know, this was a solid read. For my wife's first pick, I'll give her a check mark on this one. I have a feeling we're going to get a lot of cat-based books in the future, so might have to keep track of how many of those. But if you saw this book out and you got it for a couple bucks, you know, it might be worth reading at some point. Like I said, kind of a palate cleanser read, or one of those reads you can just read it for the plot and enjoy it like that. Now, I know Louis Trimble had also wrote a couple other science fiction books, and they have DAW editions too. And if I see these out in the wild for a couple bucks, I will definitely pick them up. There's one in particular that sounds pretty interesting, kind of one of his more higher rated books. And, you know, I'll give him another shot again for sure. So that's going to be it for that review. Next up, we have another DAW book, Clifford Simic, The Werewolf Principle. I'm going to be reading this with a few other people and talking about this on Sean D. Stanfast's channel next weekend. So you could look out for that one. Also probably post something on the community page with a link for that one. But the next book I'm probably reading, and we'll do a review on the channel, is Rogue Moon by Aldous Budrys. So just look for that one coming out soon. And once again, thanks for watching.